Good morning, y'all, or afternoon or evening, wherever the heck you are, or wherever the heck you're going to be when you hear this. Uh, Episode 2 of the Rock Hot Takes podcast. My name is Daryl. I am getting into the weeds on another record this morning, and I am absolutely stoked to be here. Um, yeah, so we're still kind of feeling this process out. But this morning I keep saying this morning, but that's where I'm at. I'm on the East Coast. It's 10:30. So yeah, I'm just kind of this is where I'm at. So, anyways, let's talk about it. Just a couple little news desk things. My boy Tim and I we went to see Sticks in Chicago last week, and that was really fun. Total old man concert, but it was still really cool. So that was really fun. But yeah, Sticks in Chicago, it's worth the money. I mean, the tickets weren't like super like they weren't like Taylor Swift money or anything like that. So if you have the opportunity, I I would suggest that you go. Because again, the tickets weren't crazy expensive, but um, anyway, we went to see them here in the ATL, and it was really fun. We had a really good time. The crowd was cool because they're all old, and so nobody's trying to get in a fight with nobody and that kind of thing, right? And so we had a really good time. Uh, the Windy Cities tour, I think, is what they're calling because they both have Chicago roots and that kind of well, duh. One of the groups is named Chicago, but anyways, it was really fun. We had a really good time. Both bands are still really solid because you get some of these groups that are out there that are just like, oh gosh, you guys might want to hang it up, but no, these two groups are still bringing it, and it was really cool to see that. Um, yeah, Chicago and Six, the Windy Cities tour was very fun, very cool to see bands still bringing it when you do see a lot of bands that are not bringing it. But anyway, so as I've been going through this exercise, I mean, hell, this is only my second episode. You guys have been engaging with the daily YouTube reels, which I really appreciate that. Um, I've been trying to figure out exactly how I want to do these the full length episodes, um, and it's really just been albums that are close to my heart and stuff that I grew up on, kind of things. And I've been trying to just get into the weeds with the albums that I really loved growing up, and I'm keep falling into 1988. And so today we're gonna get into the weeds on the Bulletboys debut record. Um, Also in 1988. So we did Queensryche Operation Mindcrime last week, and this Bulletboys record, man, there's a lot of connecting the dots on this one. So if we look at it from like a top down, right? So we got this is a great record, by the way. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, unfamiliar. Go check it out, especially if you're a Van Halen fan, which I am. And if you checked us out on the To Hell with the Podcast, which is the podcast I do with my boy Tim, and we talk about a lot of Striper stuff, but we do talk about some Van Halen stuff too. Um, we know that this record was it. They don't overtly say that they were trying to make Van Halen 2.0, but if you look at all the stuff that was surrounded, and I'll go into some detail on this, but they were trying to make David Lee Roth Van Halen 2.0. So we'll go into that a little bit, but um, we're into 1988, so um, we already have 5150 because that came out in 86, and Roth is already gone. Um, doing his solo stuff. So Warner Brothers needed something to maybe fill the gap that DLR kind of left. And I'm not sure what their marketing strategy was, but and I don't pretend to be a freaking record executive, but it just looked, if you look at this band on its face, it's like, oh yeah, they were trying to make the next Van Halen. So if you look at this, because you had all the same cast of characters, right? So you had Ted Templeman, who had made the first six Van Halen. He produced the first six Van Halen records. So, and shout out to him, dude. He's an awesome producer. There's no there's nothing to say that he doesn't have a great reputation, and he's done a bunch of great work. He's worked with Aerosmith. I mean, his reputation is without question. So, yeah. So, and they worked at One on One Studios in North Hollywood, which, if you're doing your homework, same spot that Metallica did the Black Album. It's a historic studio. So yeah, it's great place. Yeah, we got a lot of history in this, where you got the guys. Basically, you got 3/4 of King Cobra. It, a lesser known band, but the drummer of King Cobra was Carmine. I'm going to say this wrong. Appice, legendary drummer. So Mark Torian, Mick Sweeta. I mean, they were all in King Cobra. Basically, just moved over into this new band, and so you're moving into this new band, Bulletboys, and they moved over into this new band, new studio, new producer. It seemed like they were just trying to like make a new Van Halen, but they did a good job of repackaging King Cobra into this, and it wasn't necessarily a new sound, because they still had that blues kind of swing swagger thing, which really sounded good. The record sounds amazing because you had Templeman doing that. He has a I think the term is like an open air, like an open studio. If you look at the video for Smooth Up, they're basically in a warehouse, but that's kind of, and I think that was on purpose, because Templeman has a open air. There's no like overdub tracks. There's no there's this, and this is kind of a cool key, because this is 1988, where you're starting to get like all the glammy hair BS. I'm not cursing. They have all this stuff. There's no keyboards on this record, and so at this particular time, that's kind of a weird thing. So it was just them. It was just a 4-piece in an open studio, and they did not do a lot of like post-production BS. So, and to me, that's kind of why I love this record so much. And it did do, I mean, it did do like really good numbers. I mean, it was gold, and let's go into some of the numbers. It peaked at number 34 on Billboard 200, not the rock chart, the Billboard 200. So, I mean, I know 88, we're still in the kind of the glam rock kind of, we're still charting, we're still charting metal stuff, but 34 is pretty high for 88, because don't forget, we're about to hit the Nirvana wall. So we got like 2.5 years before we hit the Nirvana wall. So, I mean, their second record is where we actually hit the Nirvana wall. but yeah, it was, it was it did some decent numbers. You got Smooth Up, um, hit 71, but if you look at the Billboard numbers for Smooth Up on the rock tracks, it hit 38. So it did some decent numbers. Anyway, I digress. I'm not gonna do all the number stuff, but and it had some really good numbers on MTV as well. Um, but there's some funky little things here that I didn't know as I was going through this. But Mick Sweet actually auditioned for Kiss, and I can't stand Kiss, but I just thought it was cool that there's a lot of there's just a lot of Van Halen, Kiss, just connecting the dots kind of stuff. Um, because Templeman actually saw them perform um, in Los Angeles, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I can do something with this," because he thought that Torian looked looked and sounded like David Lee Roth, and he's not wrong. I actually saw them here in Atlanta. Um, I think it was 89, and this club is a postage stamp. I don't think I know it didn't hold 1,000 people, but um, they played that place like they were playing to 20,000 people. So it, I mean, the swagger and just the pomp and circumstance. Like, okay, yeah, we're the next big thing, and it was cool, and I didn't care. It was just they really had like this thing. Like I say, the swagger about them was like, yeah, we're gonna be the next big thing, and it was really fun to watch them, and they really did have like they had a thing about them, and it was fun to watch because, like we were talking about on the last episode with Queensryche, um, it was on the back end of the hair metal in '88, and this was their first record. So for them to come out with something like this as their first record, it was really cool because it wasn't it 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 wasn't the cheesy bubblegum hair metal. It had like a blues swagger, and there's some songs on here, and I apologize. I'm gonna figure out this podcast thing. I have to figure out the musical element of this whole thing, and I will do that. I promise you. But yeah, there are a lot of strong songs on this record for a debut. It's very impressive. So I mean, I just um, but all these dudes have had been in the game for a minute, so they all kind of knew what they were doing. But then they assembled them with the production crew that had been working with Van Halen and put them, in this studio that had made all these great excuse me, had made these great records. And so, you kind of put everything together in this package, and it was like, yeah, this is going to succeed. And so everything kind of just lined up for this album. So you had Smooth Up, you had Ode to Joe, which is like I love that song because it's a straight up like um tribute to Joe Perry, which is, hey, gotta love Joe Perry, for better or for worse. He's the freaking guitar player in Aerosmith. So, you know, and they do like I say, they do have that blues swagger about them. So, you gotta kind of love that. But yeah, and they just, I don't know, it it wasn't that 80s sleaze. It was a little better than that, in my opinion. See, it wasn't Faster Pussycat. It wasn't it it was just a little better. Um, I like the guitar playing more on this record. It wasn't like Mick Sweeta had a little. He, he was just a little better than some of those kind of just cheesy ass guitar players that because if we're in 1988, you just didn't have a lot of the talent. I'm gonna say some things, because like I say, we were on the back half of the hair metal decade. So all the Motleys, the Rats, and I said this last week, but all those guys were kind of gone, and there were no new bodies coming through that were our guitar heroes were kind of like gone for a minute. And so, not that I'm saying Sweeta was a guitar player, but he was a guitar hero, but he was definitely, I liked him more than a lot of the guys that were coming along in that time period. So that's just my opinion. But there were I didn't see a lot of skippers on this record. I mean, as a what was I? 88, so 17 at this point. I used to practice drums to this record because there's some really cool like shuffle double bass pieces on this record that Shoot the Preacher Down was a good one. And For the Love of Money was on here too, so that's an old um OJ song. And so that was some like cool like R&B, like you can get your groove on to that song. It's a really cool cover. Because I love R&B. I'm just like that old school. If I'm not listening to like metal, I'm probably listening to hip hop or R&B for sure. So I love the OJs. I love Earth, Wind and Fire. Yeah, I had one of my friends told me one time, he's like, "Yeah, you probably were like a black man in a previous life or something." But yeah, I love R&B and hip hop. Um, but then the on the back side of this thing, you got Crank Me Up, which is just a banger. It's fast as hell. Um, but the whole record's only 34 minutes, which is that's kind of what kind of what the time should be for a 80s an 80s metal record. I mean, if you're a progressive band, cool. Make your record an hour and a half. And I'll go with you on that one too. But yeah, if you're just a glam band, and I guess that's what you would classify these dudes as. Um, but yeah, you've got a lot of 3 minute songs on this record, so I got no problem with it at all. So, but yeah, I mean, Badlands and like you're ending with F sharp 9, which is just a sleazy ass, you know, it's a sex song. So, but it's got this cool groove on it. I mean, there's you know every song. I feel like every song on this thing has like a certain character to it. But just there was, like I say, there was a lot of dots that connected here. So um, back to the King Cobra connection, the Van Halen connection. Um, and I'm gonna sneeze, and I don't want to, so I'm trying to fight that off. But excuse me, dang it, sorry. But but yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on here, and I feel like at the time, since we were kind of moving out of the 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 hair metal stuff. Sorry, I'm gonna have to edit this out. But but yeah, this was a funky era to have this record just kind of pop um on the back end of the hair metal piece of everything. So this was a weird place for this to drop in. But And you could these guys when you saw these guys on Headbangers Ball, it was like, holy crap, dude. When you were watching Smooth Up, I mean, you could see the Van Halen because, like I say, the video was like filmed in just this giant, warehouse. But Mark Torian, he looked like David Lee Roth, and you know, Mick Sweeta. Nobody's gonna be Eddie Van Halen, but he he had a good look. I mean, you know, Lonnie Vincent, they all looked cool. I mean, you know, but there was a million bands that looked cool, but they did have a little bit of that. There was something more to them, but um, like I say, they had Warner Brothers was trying to market them as, hey, maybe we could, have a Van Halen 2.0, which is, to me, that's absolutely ridiculous, but um, that's what they were trying to do. Um, it's been documented, but yeah, I mean, like I say, if you have not stepped into this record, um, please do so because I feel like it's worth the time, and the time is only 34 minutes and 3 seconds. So you know you could probably do that on your commute to work or on your ride to and from the grocery store or something like that. So so it's it's not a lot of time invested, but yeah, and there were some other funky little things that I found as I'm looking through my notes on this, but yeah, it's Torian was actually the lead singer. He wasn't always the lead singer. He was actually in Rat for a minute, but not a signed version of Rat. And I think I said it earlier that Sweeta actually was audition. He actually auditioned for Kiss back in the day. So, but yeah, and the 101 Studios, Metallica did the Black Album, and um, the Templeman thing. I think the Templeman thing might be undersold a little bit, just because he did so much with Van Halen, but he's done so much. Period. I mean, he worked with Van Halen, of course, and that's a whatever. But he worked with the Doobie Brothers and Montrose and Aerosmith. I mean, the guy, he's a freaking legend. I mean, let's not get it twisted. So just having that guy involved, and and when I listened to, and I went back a little bit, and when I was doing research on this, I was like, all right, cool. Give me every album that Ted Templeman has worked on. And I was like, all right, going through the list, Doobie Brothers, Aerosmith done with Mirrors, which is it's not a good one, and it's not his fault. Aerosmith is it's called Done with Mirrors for a reason. Um, so I went back and I was listening. I was like, dang, dude, these Doobie Brothers records. I was like, dang, there's a lot of hits on these, And so I was going back through it, and I was like, man, Templeman is just he is a legend. So when I was going back through this, I was like, man, this record it sounds really good. And so I was when I was listening to it again, and I've listened to this Bulletboys record 100 times because I really do enjoy it. And so I was like, all right, give me every Templeman record. So I went back and I was listening to the Doobie Brothers. I was like, because I enjoy the Doobie Brothers too, because I mean, hell, why not? They're awesome. And but I was like, everything has like it's a open sound. It's like they're in a room They just got their instruments and microphones and everything, and there's it sounds like there's a certain way that Templeman mics a room, and he's not like n- n- nobody's in a booth. It's just they're just open in a room recording, and I feel like to me that's an old school way to do stuff. I understand, but to me as a old head, that's that's the way I like it. It just sounds it just sounds cool. And so um, for them to do that in the late '80s, it kind of made me happy because it's like we're not we're not sampling anything. There's no keyboards. We're just doing it on its face, and we're doing it almost like we're doing it live, right? Um, and I don't know if that's the case. I can I can only hope. So I don't know. There was a lot of stuff here that had me um, thinking about technique and technical stuff that made me think that man, they were doing a lot of stuff from like um, like almost like '70s recording techniques, and I'm starting to get a little geeky here. I mean, I know, but I feel like from what I know about what happened with this record and the people that recorded it and their careers. Um, because you got I'm going to get into this, and nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. Um, Jeff Hendrickson is also the recording engineer and associate producer on this, who also worked with the Doobie Brothers. So they brought in this freaking team, right? And that was going to be overmodulated. Not to edit that, but they brought in like the right people to sit around this band and make sure that this record sounded as as perfect as they can make it. And I feel like they did a really good job with it. So that being said, oh, and George Marino, um, who's mm, Sterling Sound um, in New York, and just I'd have to go. I mean, I need to put this in the show notes, I guess. But um, he's got a list of credits that's as long as my arm. But like I say, they put a list of people around this band, um, and Warner Brothers knew what they were doing. Um, and they did this whole thing on purpose because hey, they wanted Van Halen 2.0. So the the label was trying to get a check, which that's their job. So, but you know, they this album turned out phenomenal. I love it. Um, I need to quit saying but anyways, since this album is so short, I would totally love if all my young heads would go and look at this thing because it's it's not something that it's not Black Sabbath, it's not Pink Floyd, it's not something that you might have heard of because MTV doesn't play videos anymore, but it is something that's it's a fun record to listen to. So I would say go check this thing out because it is a record that is worth listening to. It's not it's not in the hair metal vein, and it's not we're not yet into the grunge yet, and we're gonna get there. I already have like a ish ton of grunge stuff that I want to talk about, but we're not there yet. We're gonna stay in the '80s for a minute. But yeah, I would say check out if you have any inclinations in the '80s vein of stuff, but it's not the hair vein, right? Um, it's a little heavier. It's not bubblegummy. It and it's got a little more technicality to it, and the production value is what kind of keeps me into it because I I've done I've gotten so into the weeds with this thing because I knew even before I was thinking about doing this podcast, I was like, God, I knew so much about this record because I knew how it come I knew how it came to pass because of the Van Halen connecting the dots and King Cobra and all that kind of stuff. I already knew all that stuff before I started even doing the research for this. Um, but but yeah, this is a really solid record. In my opinion, there's no skippers. So guess I mean all I can say is, hey man, this is a really solid record. It's something that you can throw on and go ahead and you can crank this bitch up and you will not you will not be unsatisfied is all I can say. Um and if I mean Smooth Up is just a freaking banger. Shoot the Preacher. Here we go. All right, let me give you a couple. Smooth Up, of course, is the lead single. It always has been. Shoot the Preacher Down. It's a little dark, but it's fast. It's got the shuffle double basses on it. It's a killer. For the Love of Money is the OJ's cover. It's got a great swing. Um, Badlands and the two closers, Badlands and F sharp nine. I already said F sharp nine is just a sleazy, sexy song. Um, Badlands is, I mean, it's just both of those two last songs are just they just have a sleazy little groove to them. Not in like the stupid hair band sleazy, just just a kind of a swing to them. So um, I love those songs. But like I say, I'm kind of fanboying out. But I mean, this is a record that it was put together in the corporate world, but it and some some most of the time that crap doesn't really work, and the fans usually have a ability to see through that crap. It's like this is just corporate garbage, and this one should have been corporate garbage, but I feel like the boys in the band kind of like I say, they had been there, done that because of the experience they had with King Cobra, and Carmine had already been in the business for God bless, dude. He'd been in it for 20, 30 years at this point, and so they had already had some of that tutelage from Carmine, and then when Templeman brought them in under his wing, he's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And decent songwriting. And so, like I say, they'd already been in King Cobra and done all that stuff. So they weren't young pups. So they were able to like kind of figure it out as they went along. So this was an interesting experiment. Yeah, I said that right? Interesting experience for them, I'm sure, and an interesting experiment for the record label as well. And it worked out. I mean, they sold over 500,000 copies. So, um, but yeah, that's my little rant on the Bulletboys. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this one up. But yeah, I was listening to it this morning. I still like it, and so for you old heads, I hope y'all still like it. And for you young heads, go freaking check it out. And we're still doing rock hot takes every day. There's one this morning that I think I might get some flack for, but we were doing Jake versus Zach, and I don't know. I I hesitated when I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, well, there's a lot of content versus a little content versus both players, but hey, it's worth talking about, right? I mean, hell, at the end of the day, We're just talking about stuff, right? So it's just rock and roll. So I enjoy talking about this stuff, and any feedback is good feedback. I love conversation about this stuff. So uh, anyway, we are at the rock hot takes on every freaking platform. So you can find me anywhere. So yeah, engage me anywhere, and any comments or any takes you have about anything that I have said, good or bad, I welcome them. So we will see you guys tomorrow. So, all right. Love you guys.